Hi guys, it's Arielle. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you guys are all doing well, in today's video, I have a story time for you. I want to tell you about the very first fine that I have ever received in France over the course of the last 8 years that I've lived here. This is a video that I didn't think I would ever make because if you guys have been watching my channel for a while, I think you have a good idea of my character and just in general, I'm an incredibly law-abiding citizen. I'm very respectful, not just of authorities and of people, but I'm also, very aware of the fact that, being in France is a privilege, and I'm so grateful and thankful for that. And just generally in my day-to-day life, I really try to be as respectful and kind, as possible. So yeah, this really isn't a video I thought I would make, but my channel has always been about sharing my experiences to help you guys have the most enjoyable, safe trip. I like to share my tips and tricks and advice to make your trip better. So that's why I want to share this. If I can help someone avoid finding themselves in the same situation as I did, then, that makes me really happy, especially because this incident, this fine that I received was right before I went on a trip. So it left kind of a bad taste in my mouth, while I was traveling. This fine also happened on my way to the airport and was very much something that was targeted towards tourists, which again is why I want to share this. That being said, I'm not sharing this video for sympathy. I am not sharing it to be criticized. I'm just sharing an experience so that I can hopefully help you guys during your future travels to Paris or to France. So yeah, let's get into what happened, and then at the end of the video, I want to share my thoughts on what happened as well. So basically, Jean and I were going to the airport. We just got back from Canada. We went to go visit my family. And so we ended up taking the RER-B, which is the train, the metro line that takes you directly to the Charles de Gaulle airport. And the RER-B passes through really big stations like Châtelet-les-Halles, Gare du Nord, and many others, which means that it's very busy. It's a train that's almost always going to be packed. And because you're going to the airport, which is the very last stop, you're packed into this subway car or train car for a very long time. So we got on the RER-B with all of our luggage. It was packed. And because we had luggage as well, we didn't sit down. So we were standing for probably an hour and a half, going through metro stations and stuff. I say that because my feet were hurting a lot. And so we get close to the airport, close to the end of the line, near the stop Parc des Expositions, I want to say probably 3 or 4 stops away from the airport. And at this point, the train, is completely empty because anyone who's not going to the airport obviously gets off before. So the train was pretty much empty. And so Jean and I were able to sit down because we could put our luggage, in the little booth area. And yeah, there wasn't anyone that were going to be annoying with that. So we sit down and I was so tired. My feet were hurting so much. And I crossed my legs. I sat down. I crossed my legs. And the toe of my running shoe was touching the plastic side of the seat. I will put a picture on screen to show you guys what part of my shoe was touching what part of the metro seat. Okay? Not my foot. I don't even want to say foot. It was the tip of my toe was touching the plastic part of the seat. I wasn't resting my feet on the seat of the metro. I would never do that, especially the cloth part of the seat. Like, I would never do that. But I did have my toe resting on the plastic. And one toe. And within 1 minute of me doing that, we were one stop away from the airport, like when we were getting off. Out of nowhere, this woman runs up to me. Before I know it, I have a debit machine shoved in my face, and she's demanding that I pay a fine for 60 euros because I had my foot on the seat. Again, if we're talking semantics, my foot was not on the seat. It was touching the outer plastic on the side of the seat. But it was very aggressive. It was completely in my face. I was stunned. Like, I had no idea what was even going on. And it actually felt so unprofessional that I wanted to ask her for her ID because it was very strange. She just ran up to Jean and I. She had a security band. It was like an orange security band around her arm. But other than that, she didn't have any identification. And yeah, she was like, it's 60 euros. You're fine. You have your feet on the chair. You should know that there's always controllers, near the airport on this line. We're always watching. I honestly don't even know exactly what she said. It was just like she demanded 60 euros. And I pulled out my card. And like I said, I will never be rude or argue with a figure of authority. Like, I've always been taught, like, I don't know, by my parents to, be very respectful. Police have always been helpful to me. I don't know, like, I just, again, like I said, it's so important to me to be respectful to other people, and especially figures of authority. I think coming from Canada, a place where there is a really good relationship between police and citizens, like, I don't know, if you need help, you go to a police and they help you, So it's like, I've just always been raised in a place where you should be respectful of people of authority. And so I was very respectful to this woman. I wasn't going to argue with her about paying this fine, even though I did think it wasn't quite fair. And so I tried using my card, and for some reason my card didn't work. So I go, I don't know how to pay. I don't have cash, and my card's not working in your machine. And so she goes, well, then give me a piece of ID and you'll be mailed a ticket, and it'll be double. So 120, which I know actually does happen because I've had other friends who were fined 35 euros for not paying a metro ticket. And if they didn't pay the 35 on spot, they had to pay 70 via mail. So I do know that does happen. And I didn't want to pay 120 euros, when I got back from my trip for this whole fine. So I used Jean's card to pay for this fine. And yeah, it was just like, she started ranting to us about how her job is important and how it's important to find people who have their feet on the chairs. And what kind of was shocking about this whole situation, like, when I want to give my opinion on this because it was shocking. I genuinely don't think my behavior was deserving of a 60 or 120 euro fine, for a couple of reasons. Number one, like I said, I didn't have my feet on the chair. I didn't have feet plural. I had one toe touching the side of the chair. Two, this is something that parents and children do all the time on the metro. Like, parents will lift their children up on the seats. Kids will have their feet kicking or touching the seats. And you're not fining the parents or the children. And more so is that there are so many worse things to be fined for that people never do. You guys know that I have probably 5 videos on my channel talking about pickpockets and explaining how it is the pickpockets run the metro stations, right? Like, I've said this many times about how as soon as pickpockets enter the metro or they're on the quay of the metro or they're in a metro, immediately you have someone over the PA system in the metro or like in the actual tram announcing that there's pickpockets and telling people to be careful. But there's never anyone finding the pickpockets. We know who they are, we announce them, but nobody ever finds them, you know? You have people who, on a daily basis, will smoke on the trains, who will defecate on the trains. Like, I'm talking, these are daily occurrences for me. And these people never get fines. And this is what I mean about it was very clearly something that was targeted for tourists. Like, they waited for everybody to get off the train, you know, and were targeting people that they knew would not argue, that wouldn't be violent. You know, I can imagine that asking me to pay a fine for having a toe on the side of a metro chair is going to be a lot less threatening than confronting a group of pickpockets. And so the issue with this for me is that it creates a distrust between, you know, citizens and figures of authority, because that is one difference that you can see between France and Canada, at least from my perspective and my experience, is that there isn't the same respect toward figures of authority, security, and police in France in the same way that there is in Canada. And this has always been shocking to me because, like I've said repeatedly, like I've always been very thankful for the service of police and firefighters, you know, people, yeah, who, from my experience, have always helped and protected me, you know? And I think this kind of fining contributes to an animosity in a society between citizens and figures of authority, because you're not fining the things that I think should be fined, like pickpocketing people or, like selling illegal things that shouldn't be sold on the metro or outside the metro. And to instead find someone who is like, you know, a much easier target to find, who's doing something significantly less harmful to society, I think is, I don't know. I think it doesn't make sense when you're not finding things that should be fined, but you're really coming down hard on people you know are tourists and, you know, who don't have bad intentions. And I actually went back to look at the signage because she obviously targeted me because I look like a tourist when I travel. Like, I have my leggings, I speak English, I look like a tourist in Paris. But the thing is, like, I went back to look at the signage for the rules on the metro, and it's very clearly outlined, you know, no smoking, no blocking certain exits, no prying open the doors. Like, there are rules that are outlined, but the rule of not having a toe touching the chair or even having your feet on the seat was not outlined clearly in any signage that I could see on this specific train. So yeah, I think to target people who are foreigners in a country who aren't necessarily aware of the rules, who aren't, I mean, we should always be aware of laws. Like, I'm not saying that, but this law specifically, or this rule specifically, isn't even a rule that's written out in the same way that the other ones are. So I can imagine that it wouldn't be super clear for tourists, making them, you know, a much easier target, even if they don't have bad intentions. So, yeah, that's what happened. That's my 2 cents on this topic. You know, I paid the fine. I learned my lesson. I won't be resting my toe on the side of a chair in the future. And I recommend that you don't either if you're traveling on the RERB to Charles de Gaulle. It was pretty instant. Like, as soon as everybody got off the train, it was just tourists going to the airport. That's when the security went around finding people. So yeah, I hope this maybe made you guys aware of a rule that you should very strictly follow when you're using the metro in France or the RER trains, especially if you're traveling with children who maybe have a tendency to put their feet on, you know, the sides at the window or on the chairs. I doubt that they would be very lenient with children either. So yeah, you know, there we go. We're all more aware. I've definitely learned my lesson. I paid my first fine and I we'll know better for next time. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you have a great week, you have a great trip in Paris if you're traveling, and I'll see you in the next one.